ለመማር ወደ ትምህርት ተቋም መሄድ ግድ አይደለም። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
ራሳችሁን ከኮሮና ቫይረስ ወረርሽኝ እየጠበቃችሁ በቤታችሁ ወይም በተመቻችሁ ቦታ በኢንተርኔት አማካኝነት በኦንላይን ትምህርታችሁን መከታተል ትችላላችሁ።
ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና ከእንግሊዙ ኢንስቲትዩት ኦፍ ኮመርሻል ማኔጅመንት ICM ጋር በመተባበር የሚሰጡ ትምህርቶችን ተከታትላችሁ በ6 ወር ጊዜ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ተቀባይነት ያለውን የስልጠና ማስረጃ ባለቤት መሆን ይቻላል።
ልምድ ባላቸው መምህራን እየተማራችሁ ጥያቄና መልስ የክፍል ስራዎች ፈተና መፈተን ክፍል ውስጥ እንዳላችሁት አይነት በኦንላይን ባላችሁበት ቦታ ከናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back to geography class. Last time I think we have discussed the first portions of this chapter, chapter 5, which deals about the climate of Ethiopia and the Horn. I think, can we start, please? I have about 9 participants. I expect more, but for the interest of time, let's start. So last time we have tried to talk about what climate is. We have also seen, the major elements of climate and weather, which elements individually and together result weather and climate. We have also tried to look at the major controls of weather and climate. As you know, weather elements are not evenly distributed over the atmosphere from place to place and even from time to time. So what are the major factors that are responsible behind this uneven or unequal distribution of weather and climate elements or atmospheric elements in general? As you remember, we have discussed some of the major controls or factors that are responsible behind the heterogeneous or unequal distribution of these atmospheric elements. Variables like latitude, like altitude, the distance of a place from the surrounding water bodies or oceans, air pressure, ocean current, so on and so forth. The major question that we have tried to respond so far is that how each factors, how each variables or each controls influence the spatio-temporal distribution, not only, but also variation of these atmospheric elements. Okay, how, for instance, latitude influence the variations of one atmospheric element like temperature or rainfall or humidity, so on and so forth. Okay, we have to briefly justify the impact of each atmospheric elements. Last time we have also tried to look at the spatial temporal variation of some of the elements like rainfall and temperature. As you know, rainfall vary from time to time, from place to place. Okay, for instance, highland parts of Ethiopia receives high amount of rainfall, not only during the peak rainy season, but also throughout the year. But lowland parts, especially lowland parts, receive very small amount of rainfall. Okay, here you can easily understand that rainfall varies from one part of the country or the planet to the other part of the country or the planet. The question is why rainfall vary from place to place? Okay, why rainfall spatially vary? Okay, in terms of magnitude. Okay, we have to remember the variables. We have also tried to look at some of the regions, okay, climatic regions. Ethiopia has diverse climatic regions. This is mainly because Ethiopia has diverse relief structure. As you remember, Ethiopia has highlands, Ethiopia has plateaulands, Ethiopia has deserts, Ethiopia has Rift Valley regions, so on and so forth. Because of this natural relief structure or relief arrangement, this diverse relief structure experiences diverse climatic conditions. Ethiopia, as a result, has Ethiopia has diverse climatic regions because of its natural relief arrangement, relief structure. What kind of climatic condition or weather condition highland parts experience? What kind of climatic condition or weather condition that lowland regions experience is a very important question. Following the natural relief structure or relief arrangement, there are also diverse rainy regions or rainfall regions here in Ethiopia. Okay. Different parts of Ethiopia receives different volume of water from rain. Okay. Some parts of Ethiopia, for instance, receives rainfall almost throughout the year. That part of the country is considered as all year round rainfall region. Okay. The other part of Ethiopia receives rainfall during summer. Okay, we can call this portion or part of Ethiopia as summer rainfall receiving region. The other parts of Ethiopia probably receives during winter. Okay, that part of Ethiopia is called winter rainfall region or winter rainfall receiving region. As you know, there are also parts of Ethiopia that receive rainfall during autumn, during spring. Okay, we call these regions as winter and autumn rainfall receiving. The question here is that specifically which part of Ethiopia or which parts of Ethiopia are grouped under summer rainfall receiving region, which part of Ethiopia are grouped under the autumn and spring rainfall receiving parts, so on and so forth. Okay. As you remember, the southwestern portions of the country, okay, like Wallagga, Jimma, Kaffa, Illu Ababra or Illubabur, that part of Ethiopia receives rainfall almost throughout the year because of its natural relief structure. okay, which is also called the wettest parts of the country. Okay. That zone or that part of Ethiopia are grouped under all year round rainfall receiving parts or zone of the country. Whereas the southwestern, the southeastern lowlands, like Wabishele lowland, like Gannale lowland, like the Rift Valley region, particularly the northern Rift Valley region, receives rainfall during winter, and some portion of the country receives during autumn and spring. Okay, that region, that southeastern lowland parts are grouped under winter rainfall receiving region and autumn and spring rainfall receiving region. Today, let's look at the agroecological zones of Ethiopia. As I have said several times, Ethiopia has diverse agroclimatic zones. This zoning was made by considering some variable. Okay, when we talk about any region or regionalization, we have to consider some variable. Okay. The points I mentioned before, like rainfall receiving regions, when we classify Ethiopia based on some variable, don't forget, we have to precisely identify which variables help us classify Ethiopia into some regions. Okay. The variables I mentioned before as rainfall. Based on the volume of rainfall, we classified Ethiopia as summer rainfall receiving region, all year round rainfall receiving region, autumn and spring, winter, so on and so forth. Considering not temperature, but only rainfall. Here, when we talk about the agroecological zones, our variable is only temperature. In Ethiopia, there is no uniformly distributed volume of temperature. The temperature varies from one part of the country to the other part because of some variable like latitude, altitude, and other factors. But which one, okay, profoundly influence the spatial variation of temperature here in Ethiopia is a very important question. So Ethiopia has 5 agroclimatic regions based on temperature. These are Wuj, Daga, Wenedega, Ola, and Baraha. What kind of characteristics each agroclimatic zone has is a very important question. Okay. The variations of temperature depends on the altitude of a place. Okay. Altitudinally, different parts of Ethiopia has diverse and different altitudinal extent. Okay, some parts of Ethiopia has an altitude of up to 4,000 meters. Some parts of Ethiopia has an altitude of even below 500 meters, so on and so forth. These variations of altitude results places experience different temperature level. The first region is nothing but Wurch zone. Here, what I advised you is try to differentiate each zone. Okay, try to identify variables that will help you identify one agroclimatic region from the other climatic region. You can, for instance, consider the altitude, the height of a place, number one. Number two, the geographic extent or the size of a region. Number three, you can also consider the overall socioeconomic characteristics of a place or a region. Okay, socioeconomic characteristics of which region and socio-economic and cultural characteristics of Daga, Wendiga, so on and so forth. Okay, you can also consider rainfall and temperature characteristics of a place. The first region is nothing but which. What kind of characteristics this region has is a very important question. Number one, this region has an altitude of more than 3,200 meters above sea level. All places of the country or parts of the country having an altitude of more than this region experiences almost similar temperature and similar rainfall. As a result, whether places of this size is found in northern Ethiopia, Tigray, Amhara, Oromia, or southern region, the characteristics of a place has almost the same, in terms of temperature, in terms of rainfall, so on and so forth. So any place having an altitude of more than 3,200 meters are grouped under one category, one box, one region, which is called Wurch. In terms of total size in Ethiopia, this region covers nearly 1% of the total area of Ethiopia. Don't forget the total size of Ethiopia. Out of that size, this region has a share of about 1%. Within this percentage share, this region experiences a very cold temperature, which is below 10 degrees centigrade. You can imagine the temperature level. This region is the coldest part of the country because the region is the most elevated region, highland region. Don't forget the highest places we mentioned before in chapter 4. The highest places that are found in the Tigray Plateau, the highest points in the North Central Massif, Gondar, Gojam, Wollo region. Don't forget the highest places having an altitude of more than 3,000 meters that are found in the Shuam Plateau. Don't forget in the RC, Bale, Sidam Highland. All highest places or highlands having an altitude of more than this number and that are found in all parts of Ethiopia under this category and experience below 10 degrees centigrade annually. The average temperature is below 10 degrees centigrade. You can imagine the coldest season, and you can also imagine the warmest season of this region, which is cold. So which region, don't forget, has an altitude of more than that. In terms of total extent, it's the smallest. In terms of temperature, you can imagine the coldest part and the rainy parts of the country. The second one is Daga zone. Okay, this region has an altitude of below 3,200 meters, but above 2,300 meters. Okay, places having an altitude of within 2,300 meters and 3,200 meters are grouped under one category, one region, and named as Daga region. Look, relatively, the Daga region experience higher temperature than Wurch because of the altitude. Don't forget how suitable the Daga region is to human existence. Don't forget how suitable even the Wurch region is. Okay. In Ethiopia, the most densely populated zone or region, regions are like Daga, like even Wurch, because people needs regions that are neither extremely cold nor extremely hot region. Okay, as a result, this region is densely populated region as compared to other regions. The third agroclimatic zone of Ethiopia is the Daga zone. Okay. This zone encompasses or includes all areas of Ethiopia having an altitude of beyond 1,500 meters and below the Daga region. Okay, that means below 2,300 meters. Any part of Ethiopia within this altitudinal extent are grouped under Daga region. In terms of total area coverage, this region covers nearly 26% of the total area of Ethiopia. As a result, this region is the second largest agroclimatic region in Ethiopia. Okay, next to Kola region. The temperature is warmer than Daga and Daga, but cooler than Kola and Baraka. Okay. Okay. The fourth one is Kola zone. In chapter 4, if you remembered, we have discussed the overall altitudinal extent of almost all physiographic regions, the western physiographic region, both highlands and lowlands, the Rift Valley physiographic region, okay, whether it is Afar Triangle, the Lakes region, or southern Rift Valley region. We have also discussed the southeastern physiographic region, whether it is southeastern highlands or southeastern lowlands. If you remember that, you can easily identify which parts of each physiographic regions are considered as Daga, Daga, Kola, Barha, or other physiographic characteristics. So Kola is a place that has an altitude of below 1,500 meters and beyond 500 meters. You can imagine. Okay, any place having In between this altitudinal extent are grouped under polar region. Here in Ethiopia, nearly more than half of the total area of Ethiopia are grouped under this category, okay? Because more than 50% of the total area of Ethiopia has, okay, in between 500 and 1,500 meters above sea level. As a result, this region is the largest agroclimatic region here in Ethiopia, the largest. Okay. Don't forget the temperature characteristics of Kolla zone. Okay. As altitude decrease, you can imagine the temperature level. As altitude increase, you can imagine the temperature level too. Okay. We're talking about regions from the highest altitude to the lowest one. Okay. As altitude increase from Wurch to Daga, Daga and Kola, you can imagine the temperature level too. Okay. The temperature is decreasing from Wurch, Daga, and Daga to Kola and Parha. Okay. The average annual temperature level of this region reaches up to 30 degrees centigrade, you can imagine. The temperature is very high as compared to Daga and Daga and Wurch region. So, which part of Ethiopia experience this much temperature? If you remember the physiographic regions of the country, you can say which part experience this much. Okay. Rainfall is highly variable in this region. Okay. Rainfall variability is high. Okay. As temperature increase, you can imagine as altitude decrease, you can imagine the rainfall variability. Okay. The Kola region receives smaller amount of rainfall as compared to Daga, Daga and Wurch. Okay. The volume of water and rainfall, surface and underground water is scanty in Kola and Baraha zone because of lack of rain and because of the presence of high amount of temperature throughout almost a year. Baraha is a place having an altitude of below 500 meters. Okay, below 500 meters. Which part of Ethiopia has an altitude of this one is a very important question. In terms of total area, Baraha covers nearly 10% of the total area of the country. Okay, nearly 9.4%. Okay. It has an average rainfall of below 200 millimeter, I think, and the average annual temperature is greater than 27 and greater than 30 degrees centigrade. Some parts of Ethiopia experience nearly 40 to usually 50 degrees centigrade. Okay, which part of Ethiopia experiences this much is a very important question. Okay, any place receiving more than 27 and even more than 30 degrees centigrade are grouped under Baraha, are the have the characteristics of Baraha, okay? Because that region receives very high amount of temperature and
በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ ኤምቢኤ በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምቢኤ በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ ኤምቢኤ በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ ኤምቢኤ በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ ኤምኤስሲ በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድ እና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
little or no rainfall at all. Okay, you can easily identify that part of the country. Okay, in Baraha and Walla regions, you can imagine why these regions receive very small amount of groundwater and surface water. You can imagine the characteristics of the people, the characteristics of plant species, the characteristics of anything there. So the overall summary of the agroecological zones of Ethiopia in terms of altitude, in terms of rainfall, in terms of temperature, and in terms of area coverage or percentage share from the total size of the country. You can compare, okay, the altitude, you can compare the rainfall and the temperature level. You can also compare the size of these agroclimatic regions. The other very important issue in this chapter is global warming or climate change. Till now, we have seen the spatial variations of temperature, the spatial variations of rainfall. We have also seen the temporal variations of rainfall and temperature. The agroclimatic regions, the rainfall regions particularly. Okay. Having these concepts in mind, here in this part of the chapter, we will look at what global warming or climate change is. The experiences or the trends of global warming or temperature change, average temperature change, or climate change here in Ethiopia. We will also look at the causes of climate change, the repercussions of climate change, and some of the ways or approach or mechanisms of reducing or completely controlling global warming or climate change. Okay. So what's climate change first? Is a very important question. As you all know, these days, the world is talking about this agenda, this issue, global warming. Okay. At the top of the government, scientists, researchers, so on and so forth, are talking about this issue as a priority agenda. Okay. Why this governments, global politicians, okay, talk about this issue? It's a very important question. Why do they consider this issue as a priority and number one agenda is a very important question? Because the issue is a very serious issue. The issue is the environmental issue, atmospheric issue, the issue of temperature, the issue of rainfall, the issue of hotness and coldness, the issue of flood, the issue of droughts, and cumulatively the issue of existence or survival on Earth. So climate change, as its name implies, is a change of temperature, the rate of change of temperature to some direction. To what level temperature is changing is a very important thing. Okay, the global atmospheric element is changing, altering, okay, moving from one point to some other point. Where is the direction of change of climate is a very important thing. As you remember, climate is a long year, okay. It is not an instantaneous or a short term characteristics of the atmosphere. Rather, it is a long year record of the average atmospheric element, okay, specifically temperature, okay. So climate change refers to a change in the state or condition of the climate that can be identified by changes in the mean or average, okay, and the variability of its properties like rainfall, temperature, humidity, pressure, so on and so forth, that persists for an extended and long period of time, okay, usually 3-4 decades and half a century, okay. That change or an alteration of temperature or an average increment of temperature or atmospheric condition is called climate change, okay. Any change in climate over time due to probably our day-to-day activity or anthropogenic activity or man-made activity or natural occurrence or both, okay. The change of temperature, the increment of average temperature is mainly due to human factors and natural factors, okay. The experience and record of climate data revealed that the temperature is growing. I mean, increasing. The average temperature record is changing, okay, increasing, okay, for the last 50 to 100 years. This increment of the average temperature or the change of climate was mainly due to human interference, okay, humans' encroachment on the environment, wrongly intervention of we humans result the today's level of status of the environment, okay. Let's look at the experiences here in Ethiopia or the trends of temperature variability here in Ethiopia. The mean or average annual temperature of Ethiopia has changed from 0.2 degrees centigrade to nearly 0.3 degrees centigrade. Okay, this change is not a downward change, but the upward. It's not decreasing, but increasing. Okay, for the last nearly 50 years, you can imagine. The rate of change shows there is an annual or average or mean yearly or annual temperature change. Okay. Specifically, some study indicated that in between, okay, 1960 to 2006, you can imagine the record. There was a change of about 1.3 degrees centigrade within these years, nearly 45 years data. Okay. Within these 45 years, there was a change of average temperature about 1.3 degrees centigrade. You can imagine. Okay, this change was very serious in some lowland parts, almost in all lowland parts of the planet and Ethiopia in particular. Okay, you can imagine how these lowland regions, even today, are suffering by lack of water, by shortage of water, and by extreme temperature. Okay, don't forget our lowland regions, particularly the nomadic zones of the country. Not only temperature is changing, but also rainfall too is changing from year to year. Okay, rainfall variability is increasing in many parts of Ethiopia. Okay, some parts of Ethiopia receives rainfall, but due to climate and atmospheric elements, and due to our intervention, our encroachment, the rainfall availability also today has influenced by this human encroachment and natural factors like volcanic eruption, like earthquake, landslide, so on and so forth. So the total average rainfall is showing decline in almost not only some region but almost all parts of the planet. The volume of rainfall, the amount of rainfall is declining and has changed. Okay, rainfall distribution has changed because of this climate and atmospheric changes. Some parts of Ethiopia, like southern, southwestern, southeastern regions, receive spring and summer rainfall have shown decline by nearly 20%. You can imagine within these specific years. Okay, you can imagine the change, which is very high. 20% plus minus is a very big change. Okay, you can imagine this change has an impact on people's life, okay, residents' life. But since our economy is dependent on agriculture, you can imagine how the change of rainfall by this number, by this percent, nearly 20%, how this percent influence our farmers' life and overall even urban resident life. Because when the life of farmers and the economy of farmers disturbed, you can imagine, since our farmers are the source of food for urban residents, that influence has a cumulative impact even on urban residents. So this change indicates that there are reasons behind the imbalance. Okay, there is some imbalance on the atmosphere. Okay, that imbalance results this change, climate change, temperature change, rainfall change. Okay, what are the causes of that imbalance? Atmospheric imbalance is a very important question. Okay, the imbalance on climatic conditions, or in short, what are the causes of this change? Climate change is a very important question. Why temperature is changing? Why temperature is increasing? Okay, because of which reason temperature is increasing on the atmosphere? Okay, how temperature accumulated on the lower atmosphere is a very important question. Okay, this is mainly because of some natural and man-made or man-related factors, anthropogenic factors, okay, artificial factors. How nature results climate change, how nature contributed to this atmospheric change is a very important question. Let's see. Number one, volcanic eruption is one contributor, supplier of materials or elements that can absorb temperature here on the lower atmosphere. What kind of materials, okay, brought by volcanic eruption and joined the atmosphere is a very important question. Okay, when volcanic eruption occur, you can imagine different elements, okay, came out from beneath the surface of the earth. Since the earth was made by a combination of different materials during its formation, that materials might be poured out on the the outer part of the earth and join the atmosphere easily via pressure. Materials like in the form of ash, in the form of water vapor, in the form of solid particles, okay, materials released out onto the atmosphere. That materials, that particles, like water vapor, like ash, has the potential to absorb, okay, the incoming solar radiation from the sun and absorb the re-radiated energy from the materials of the earth. The other very important natural reason is the Earth's orbital change. Look, more tilt, okay, towards the north, towards the south. The Earth revolves around the sun nearly about 66.5 degrees with respect to its orbit. So when it tilts towards north or towards the southern equator, you can imagine the amount of the volume of energy released to the Earth. Okay. The third one is energy budget. Look, the amount of energy absorbed by particles that are found on the atmosphere, okay, centuries ago, and the amount of energy absorbed by particles today varies. Look, because within a century, a very huge volume of particles joined the atmosphere. As a result, today, the volume of energy, the amount of temperature received by this huge accumulation of particles on the atmosphere results the presence of high concentration of temperature here in the lower atmosphere. But centuries ago, don't forget the volume of particles joined to the atmosphere via volcanic eruption. As a result, the energy budget was very small, okay, because of the sparsely accumulated, sparsely available number of volume of particles centuries ago before it was released and joined to the atmosphere. Due to these natural related contributors, today the temperature, the average temperature is rising up, okay, growing up, okay. In addition to the natural reasons, there are also our day-to-day activities, okay, that result global temperature change, temperature increment, okay. Human activities like misuse of our environment, okay, like deforestation, okay. You can imagine the relationship between forest or trees and temperature and rainfall. Okay, don't forget the relationship. When people deforest trees or cut trees during their natural food preparation process or photosynthesis process, okay, trees naturally inhale carbon dioxide and exhale or release oxygen to the atmosphere. Via this natural food processing or photosynthesis process, forests or trees keep the natural hydrological cycle, okay, by just consuming carbon dioxide or reducing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to their body, and by releasing oxygen to the atmosphere. Okay, but whenever we talk about deforestation, we're talking about reducing oxygen from the atmosphere and increasing carbon dioxide emitted from different sources on the atmosphere. As a result, deforestation is a very serious contributor to the global temperature increment. Okay. Via our day-to-day activities, what kind of materials are released to the atmosphere is a very important question. Whatever carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, so on and so forth, are some of the absorbers. Okay, these elements absorb carbon dioxide and absorb the incoming solar radiation and result the change of temperature up or the rising of temperature. So not only deforestation that results climate change, but also the revolution, industrial revolution, or the emissions from factories, emissions from our home activities, emissions from today from humans, okay, breathing, okay, humans exhale carbon dioxide and even inhale oxygen. Don't forget the rate of growth of population today, not only here in Ethiopia, but also across the globe. Another very serious problem today, or very serious cause today for the climate change, as the rate of urbanization. Okay, don't forget that urbanization rate consumes natural and green environment and results black or asphalted environment. Particularly in the low developed countries like Ethiopia, today the rate of urbanization or the movement of people to urban settlement is very, very high, not only here in Ethiopia, but also in almost all developing and agrarian world. That rate of change from rurality to urbanity consumes green environment, needs changing green and natural environment into buildings and asphalts. That phase of transformation, that phase of change from agrarian and rural to urban causes, okay, the contributes a lot to the change of climate. This rate of urbanization and movement of people from rurality to urbanity needs energy. That energy, particularly here in the low developed nations, relies only on forests. Okay, people, countries to prepare or cook food. People, countries to have office equipments. People, countries to have equipments for homes, so on and so forth. Okay, the only source of energy in developing nations are forests and trees. As a result, deforestation and cutting of trees is very serious. That can contribute a lot to this change. Today, the vehicular emission is a very serious enemy to the environment. Okay, vehicular emission, particularly in low developed nations like Ethiopia, in a very urbanizing countries like Ethiopia. What we are importing as a very old and outdated vehicles, which are not environmentally friendly. Okay, you can imagine. As a result, vehicular emissions is a very serious and number one contributor to the climate change. Having these causes in mind, what would be the outcomes at the end of the day? Okay. What would be the consequences or repercussions of climate change? Today, ice-capped regions are suffering a lot because of melting of ice. Today, wood and Dega zone are running to be Walla, so on and so forth, because of this climate disruption, environmental disruption, global warming. So this change has a cumulative impact on people's life, people's health, impact on water bodies like oceans, seas, so on and so forth. The volume of oceans, okay, today are growing. This volume of oceans and water bodies result floods, and today many parts of the world, including even Ethiopia, are suffering more due to flooding. Okay, this unexpected natural occurrence and volume of water mainly due to atmospheric change or environmental change. It has also an impact on agriculture. Okay, you can imagine the productivity of agriculture in Ola region, Daga region, so on and so forth. When an unexpected flood happened, you can imagine the level of erosion, the level of catastrophe, the level of problems that would be there. Okay, so agricultural productivity could be under question today, especially on those agrarian nations, agricultural dependent nations like Ethiopia. It has an impact on overall ecosystem. Okay, ecosystem change on the life of the people, the life of plant species, the life of animals, wild, tame, so on and so forth. So it has repercussions on overall life. The question is, we all agreed that there is climate change, there is global warming, there is an average temperature increment. Okay, we know very well about the causes of climate change. We understood the outcomes of or the consequence of global warming or temperature change. So how can we curb, how can we respond to this global problem? This is a very important, a very crucial question that today the world is dealing about. That's why politicians, that's why governments of across the world, that's why scientists, that's why environmentalists, and almost all people talk about how can we reduce, okay, the release of temperature absorbers on the atmosphere. What are the mechanisms of responding this question? There are three options. Okay, number one, mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. What are the strategies of mitigating climate change. Okay. Mitigation is nothing but any action that are taken to reduce or control greenhouse gas emissions. Any action taken by governments, taken by researchers, taken by environmental actors to reduce or to control emissions of gases, emissions of elements, emissions of absorbers is called mitigation. Nabiyu, hello.
Hello.
I heard somebody's
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
voice.
I'm really sorry.
Is it from your side? Any
Not
question?
my child, little sisters and brothers. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, okay. So, any action taken by every one of us is considered as a measure. What kind of measure is that? Mitigation measure. Okay. Mitigation is nothing but any activity, any measure, any approach. Okay. We are just reacting to reduce or control our day-to-day activity as considered as mitigation. Okay. What kind of measures are considered as mitigation measures is a very important question. Number one, what kind of activities should we do to reduce emissions? Okay. Everybody is responsible to the environment. Everybody. Okay. The issue of the environment, the issue of the climate, the issue of nature is not the issue of the government or researchers or environmentalists. This is the issue of every one of us. If everybody across the world, okay, put something, we can rehabilitate the alarmingly rising temperature. We can rehabilitate the atmosphere. We can rehabilitate the environment in general by just practicing environmental, temperature, climate-friendly activities. These measures are like practicing energy efficiency. Today, our vehicles, today, our energy source, okay, for home consumption, for office, and so forth, are from forests, from trees. Okay, unless we replace this source of energy to some environmental friendly source, it's difficult to mitigate or fully control the emission of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So, alternative source of energy needs to be practiced, needs to be used. Okay, not only for our home consumption, but also we have to go towards green, environmental friendly vehicle utilization for transport purpose. Increase use of renewable energy than non-renewable energy source. Efficient means of transportation, as I've said before, we have to use electric public transport, electric private transport vehicles, shared cars to reduce the emissions. We have to encourage mass transport like railway transport, like the bus, and we have to discourage auto transport, a single and individual's transport. How can we discourage auto transport? How can we encourage mass transport like buses, like railway? So on and so forth is a very important question. We have to encourage green transport, like cycling, like walking, okay, to reduce emissions from the transport sector. You can, for instance, compare the contribution of one Ambassa bus or Shagar bus and the number of passengers that this bus, either Ambassa or both, accommodates, okay, serve. And you can use that number of passengers. If we recommend auto, you can consider the number of autos needed to that number of passengers. So encouraging public transport or mass transport, green transport like cycling and walking, so on and so forth, are some of the mitigation measures. The other very important approach, strategy, mechanism to reduce global warming and temperature change as adaptation. Look, mitigation means reducing or controlling emissions from its source by just searching another options. Look, here adaptation means once climate change or global warming happened, we have to adjust ourselves towards that natural occurrence. Okay, we have to adjust ourselves, what to wear, what to eat, what to do in that existing environment. Okay, once it happened, for instance, we have to manage the repercussion by just conducting some defensive and controlling mechanisms, like by building flood defense, by just adjusting ourselves to the upcoming heat waves, temperature, flood, so on and so forth. Okay, this is an adaptation strategy. But from its source, climate change needs resilient mechanisms, okay, and new thinking, okay. As I said before, environment, the issue of the atmosphere, the issue of climate is not only the issue of governments and environmentalists. It is an issue of almost every life, every human head that exists on Earth. So everybody should be responsible toward this issue. If so, a new way of thinking needs to be practiced. Okay, a shift from somebody's to ours needs to be there. Okay, everybody should consider this issue as the issue of mind. Okay, mindness needs to be exercised by every one of us. Okay, shared responsibility, a new way of thinking, a new approach. Okay, this needs raising, okay, grassroots, okay, change of attitude, change of thinking, change of practicing, change of approaching the environment. Okay, that change, that shift has to be a paradigm shift. Okay, unless it's difficult to control this climate change by just adjusting ourselves on the existing environment, by just practicing adaptation or mitigation. We have to work much more on humans' mind. Okay, so these are some of the mechanisms that help us reduce or fully control the rise of temperature we have to stop at least here by just number one, by mitigating the sources of emissions. Okay, we have to use alternative source of energy for this purpose. We have to substitute, okay, vehicles like solar, by using like solar energy, by using like geothermal energy, by using wind energy, so on and so forth, so that these energy sources are considered as environmental likely or environmental friendly energy source. We have to reduce deforestation or cutting of trees by number one, using alternative source of energy. Number two, by planting more and more trees each year, like the strategies that this government today is talking about this issue, afforestation, reforestation, so on and so forth, so that these activities will help reduce carbon dioxide at least. Okay, thank you very much for today. Next we'll discuss the next chapter. I think ሁላችሁም አሳይመንት ኢሜል አድርጌላችኋለሁ ዛሬ።
ልዩነት መፍጠር ዓላማችን ነው። ዓለም አቀፍ ተወዳዳሪ መሆን አለባችሁ። የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ጥራትና ደረጃውን የጠበቀ ስልጠና በመስጠት ብቁ ዜጋ እያፈራን ነው። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ፣ በቲኬቲንግና ሪዘርቬሽን፣ በሆቴልና ቱሪዝም ሙያዎች አሰልጥነን ተወዳዳሪ እናደርጉታለን። ኮሌጃችን ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና ከእንግሊዙ ICM ጋር በመተባበር ዓለም አቀፍ ዕውቅና ያለው ስልጠና እየሰጠ ይገኛል። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ የምንሰጣቸው ስልጠና ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ ዕውቅና አለው። አድራሻ ከጎላጉል ታወር 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።